Khazmat Chimaev just absolutely dominated Dricus du Plessis to win the middleweight championship of the world. Welcome back, all my fight fans. Today we're going to be breaking down UFC 319. Turned out to be an incredible card. I know the main event didn't live up to everyone's expectations. It was a bit of a boring fight. Still, one of the most dominant performances in UFC history. We'll talk about that fight in a little bit, but we had so many spectacular moments throughout the card. Double spinning back elbow knockouts back to back. That was crazy. I'll break that down in a second too. But as always, I'll go through absolutely every single fight on the card. So if you guys want to skip around, there will be timestamps down below in the description. As always, if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends to help boost this channel and the algorithm. And with that all out of the way, let's get into the breakdown. Kicking us off with the first fight of the night, we had the Ultimate Fighter finale at flyweight between Joseph Morales and Alibi Idris. I thought the Idris guy was going to win, to be honest. He was from Kazakhstan, I believe, 10-0, looked amazing on the show, seemed like he had all of the skills to win this fight, but Joseph Morales, for his second time trying to get into the UFC here, he got into the UFC, I think, a couple years ago, had a couple losses. One of them was to Davidson Figueiredo, so not the worst loss on your record, but the UFC cut him. He worked his way back into the UFC, fought through the Ultimate Fighter, and then in the finale, in the second round, got a beautiful triangle choke to get the submission, and it's just awesome to see stories like that. I love when guys come into the UFC, they can't really figure it out, or they have a couple tough fights, the UFC cuts them, maybe prematurely, and then they work their way back, and they get back into the UFC. Those are always awesome stories, so that was a cool way to kick off UFC 319. And then moving on, we had a women's flyweight bout between Karine Silva and, stepping in on short notice, Diony Barbosa. I hope I'm saying that right. This was a very, very close fight. Props to Silva for taking this on such short notice. I know this card looked a lot different on the night of the fights than it did in my prediction videos. A lot of fights fell through, but I'm happy that this fight got made last minute. It was a great fight for Silva. A lot of people were saying that Barboza probably won this one. I think it was kind of a coin flip fight. You could have called it either way. I'm happy for Silva. I love the way that she fights. She's always aggressive. She looks for the finish. She has 13 first-round stoppages, which is pretty impressive for a woman. And I really like her fighting style, so I hope she does big things in this division. Maybe we can see that fight ran back at some point in the future, because it was a great fight. Very close, very entertaining women's fight. And then we had our kind of headliner for the early prelims, which was a lightweight bout between Jakar Close and Edson Barbosa. Now, this was maybe one of the more boring fights on the card, because both guys are kind of nearing the end of their career, especially Barboza. He's going to be, I think they said 40 soon, so he's probably got one or two fights left in him, and then we're probably going to see him exit the UFC, and he'll definitely go in the Hall of Fame. I know he never won a title, but he was one of the most electrifying athletes throughout his entire run in the UFC, always ending fights in spectacular fashion, kicking people to the legs and ending it, kicking people to the body and ending it, and of course the wheel kicks that he's landed in the UFC. And one of the greatest knockouts of all time was that one wheel kick where he put the guy into rigor mortis right away. That was quite impressive. So I've always said that Barboza, to me, is one of the best strikers in the history of the sport, and he's always been one of my favorite fighters of all time. Unfortunately, he didn't get it done against Jakar Close. Close closed it out and got the decision there, but maybe we'll see Edson back in there one or two more times, and then probably see his retirement. So yeah, pretty good early prelims, and then we will move on now to our regular prelims. Next up, we had a lightweight bout between Alex Hernandez and Chase Hooper. And going into this fight, Chase Hooper, I was really pulling for. I've seen improvements in his striking over his last few fights. He was on a 5-fight winning streak. He was looking better and better each fight. 25 years old, starting to come into his body a little bit more, starting to fill it out a little bit, but just didn't have enough for Anthony Hernandez. You know, he was trying to use his range and pop him on the end of his punches and keep him on the end, but every time Hernandez closed the distance and started landing combos, Chase Hooper would kind of freeze up. He'd put his guard up fine, but he'd freeze up and he wouldn't move off. He wouldn't shift angles or circle the cage, and it was that kind of left the shots open for Alex Hernandez to knock out Chase Hooper in the first round. So I was saying going into this fight that Hernandez is incredibly dangerous. This is a big, tough challenge for Hooper. It's hard to tell when Hernandez is going to have a good performance or a bad performance, but he had a fantastic performance last night, knocking out Chase Hooper in the first round. Good performance for him. Chase Hooper, the win streak has ended, and he's got to go back to the drawing board and figure it out again. But good news is he's only 25, so he's got quite a few years to still put his game together, and he's getting a lot of experience very young. We've seen guys like this before. Charles Oliveira is a perfect example. Came into the UFC, struggled quite a bit for many, many years, had a child, kind of got his head right, got his game together, and then won the belt, right? So we'll see what happens with Chase Hooper's future, but he's definitely got to he's got to work on his footwork a little bit. The striking's coming together, the head movement a little bit, but the footwork is the big thing that I think he needs to work on. So awesome performance there by Hernandez. Moving on, we had a women's strawweight bout between Lupi Godinez and Jessica Andrade, and this was a very great fight as well. Back and forth, big punches being thrown by both women. Lupi edged it out. I think it was the right call. I don't think that you could have called this fight the other way like the previous women's fight, but it was a great performance for her. And Lupi, she's kind of a new face in this division. I know she's not new to the UFC. She's been here a little bit, but she's kind of somebody who the top women in the division haven't faced yet. There's a couple fights to be made there, and I think it's better for the division if Lupi won this fight. Andrade, she's kind of faced the top of the division already. She's had some losses to some of them, especially Wei Li. So we're going to see where this goes from here, but maybe Lupi gets a top 5 fight, maybe a title shot. We'll see what happens. I think the title shot's going to go to the other Silva chick, not Karine Silva, but the other Silva that had the amazing performance recently. But yeah, excellent performance by Lupi Godinez. I was happy to see her win. Let's move on now to the middleweight fight between Mikhail Olasejek and Gerald Meerschaert. And I said going into this fight that I think Meerschaert's going to have a little bit of nerves going into this fight, fighting on the same card as Chimaev, the man who knocked him out with one punch. You might think that that's not going to play a factor. He's not fighting Chimaev. He's fighting a completely different opponent. But I'm saying, being around that guy, the guy who knocked you out with one punch, walked you down in the cage, and the thing that you do for a living, he beat you out with the first punch that he threw, that has to be pretty heartbreaking and embarrassing, and that probably weighs on his conscience a little bit. So I thought he was going to come into this fight a little bit rigid, and he did. He came in very, very rigid, shooting very sloppy takedowns. He looked horrible, honestly, from the get-go, and Mikhail Olasejek, I've been saying, man, this guy is incredibly dangerous, especially with his hands. He can knock out absolutely anybody in this division. And now that he's training with the Fighting Nerds, he looked even better in this fight. I loved the way that he tracked down Gerald. He was looking for the knockout the entire fight, and he got it very early. In the first round, he knocked out Gerald Meerschaert. Not the first time he's been knocked out in the first round, but excellent performance by Mikhail Olasejek. I can't wait to see what he does in the future of this division. Gerald Meerschaert, on the other hand, kind of getting close to the end of his career now. I believe he is 37 years old, so we'll see what he does next, but I don't know if we really want to see a grappling heavy guy in his late 30s getting knocked out anymore. Maybe it's time to move on from the sport or to at least go to another organization, but we'll see what happens with that. Now let's move on to the headliner for the prelims, which was the young phenom, the 24-year-old Chechen, Bayasangur Suzurkayev, I apologize for butchering that name, versus Eric Nolan. Now, for those of you who don't know, Suzurkayev fought on Dana White's Contender Series earlier this week. On Tuesday, he stepped in on 4 days or 6 days notice, something like that. Short notice fight, comes in, knocks the guy out, I believe in the first round. It was a beautiful shot. It was a front kick right to the midsection. Beautiful kick. I've been saying for years, people need to use their front kick more like a jab, and that kid does it. He is truly the next iteration of fighters, I think. He's going to be the future for sure. He was 9-0 coming into this fight, accepts another fight on 4 days' notice, fights on the same card as his brother Chimaev, not blood brother, but they're friends. So fights on the same card, and gets it done very quickly against Eric Nolan too. Probably could have knocked him out in the first round, but he was kind of playing with his food, being flashy, taunting, laughing. Very, very chill and relaxed in there. A very fun, entertaining guy, and kind of took his time a little bit, but in the second round, touched him up a little bit, got him to the ground, and got the rear naked choke. So this guy can do it anywhere. He can wrestle you, he can submit you, he can knock you out, he can kick you. He is a very, very well-rounded fighter. And it looks like he has the IQ to be the next generation of fighters. Like I said, just the way he uses that front kick and throws it out there like a jab and just touches the midsection constantly. It's stuff like that I'm like, yes, this is the future of MMA. And I love seeing young guys like that come in, stay active, fight 2 times in 6 days. It's guys like this, guys like Chimaev when he first came into the UFC. Guys like this get me really, really excited about their future. So we'll see what happens with Suzurkayev and see if he becomes a future champ at some point, because I think he does have the potential to do that. He looked extremely good in that fight. Even though he took a couple punches, it was mainly because he was being a fool in there and taking it so casually. So Yeah, big fan of that guy. Let's see where he goes in the future. And that wraps up our prelim. So let's move on now to the main card. Kicking off our main card, we had a flyweight bout between Tim Elliott and Kai Asakura. And man, was this an interesting fight. Going into this, I thought Asakura was going to get the first round knockout because I thought he was going to come in very explosive and just throwing flying knees right off the bat, kind of like he did against Pantoja. Didn't come in that way against Tim Elliott, was more measured, more reserved. Maybe it's because Tim Elliott has the most awkward style in the division's history, maybe in the sport's history. Very, very awkward fighter to fight. And in the first round, he had his moments. Every time he touched Tim Elliott, he hurt him. Every time he threw a combination, he was landing it faster. He was landing it with a higher percentage of accuracy. Tim Elliott was kind of all over the place, throwing random things, weird kicks, spinning around, putting his hands low, hands high. He was trying to confuse Asakura, and in the first round, it was not working out. He was getting touched up. But towards the end of the first round, he got him to the ground, and it showed that he could control Asakura on the ground. And I said this in my prediction video. I said, if this goes to the ground, Tim Elliott can win this fight. And in the second round, he took it to the ground, and he got the submission, a beautiful guillotine choke on Kai Asakura. And yeah, I don't know what to say. I was not seeing that coming. I thought the 31-year-old was going to have the advantage, the former Rizin champion. He was an excellent fighter over there in Rizin, one of the best switch knees I've ever seen in my life. I thought he was going to have the edge, and it looked like he did for a while, but the 38-year-old veteran with the wily, crafty jiu-jitsu came in and he got it done. He has such a weird style. He just kind of lulls you into those awkward spaces, and then he capitalizes. And that's why Tim Elliott's been in the UFC for so long. That's why he's had so many fights. He's always kind of in that upper echelon. So I would love to see him get a big fight after this. I'd love to see him fight at least somebody like Steve Ursay, but I'd like to see him get a fight like Moreno, something that could propel him into a title shot if he wins it. He's 38 years old. This is his last run at the title. So if he gets a fight like Moreno, wins that fight, give him Pantoja. Let's see what he can do. If that goes to the ground, Tim Elliott versus Pantoja on the ground, trust me, is a lot closer than you guys think. That's a close fight on the ground. On the feet, of course, Pantoja has the advantage, but who knows? Maybe that could be an interesting challenger. I thought it was a tremendous performance by the 38-year-old. Really, really awesome stuff. I know I was cheering for Asakura, but that made my heart feel warm when I saw Tim Elliott pull that off. I was like, yes, the old man gets it done. That's really cool. So moving on, we had the middleweight bout between Michael Venom Page and Jared Cannonier. And going into this fight, man, my prediction was dead on. I said in my prediction video, Michael Venom Page is going to win this fight by decision because it's a 3-round fight, because Jared Cannonier is so damn tough and durable, you're not going to knock him out. You might knock him down a couple times, which MVP did, but you're not going to get him out of there. And if this was a 5-round fight, I'd probably change my tune. I'd probably say Jared Cannonier can win this fight. And that's exactly how the fight played out. MVP came in there. He was too elusive, too shifty. Jared Cannonier couldn't land any punches on him, let alone a takedown. So for the first 2 rounds, Jared Cannonier kind of got pieced up. He got knocked down in each of those rounds. And then in the third round, it was like a 10-8 round, almost a 10-8. There wasn't enough damage, but it was almost a 10-8 round for Jared Cannonier because he just took MVP down and MVP couldn't move. It was like the main event. It was like he could not move. He could not get out from underneath Jared Cannonier. And if that fight had 2 more rounds in it, I think Jared Cannonier would have went back to that well, taken him down again, and probably would have squeezed out a decision. So I'm happy for myself that I saw that fight as clearly as I did, but my heart breaks a little bit for Jared Cannonier because that was such a close fight. He was so close at the end there. He was dominating in the third round, and he really doesn't deserve a loss on his record after that. But, you got to win one of those first 2 rounds, and against somebody like MVP, it's very, very tricky because he's so elusive. He gets in and out, and you just can't hit him. So it's hard to win decisions against MVP like that in a 3-round fight. In a 5-round fight, you might be able to pull it off if you can get some wrestling in there, but tremendous performance by MVP. Can't wait to see what he does next. And this is a fight that just goes to show you why I was so upset for so many years that he was over in Bellator and all of the great strikers like Silva and Adesanya and all these guys were over here in the UFC. It's like I want to see Israel Adesanya versus MVP more than any other fight I think in the UFC right now. That's like my number 1 most coveted fight because I think the stylistic matchup in that is just perfect. And for years, man, I've wanted MVP over here. I know he's still 37, 38. He's still got a couple years left in him, but it would have been so nice to have him over here in his late 20s, early 30s when he was really in his prime. A lot of you guys missed that. And if you haven't done it before, please go back and watch at least his highlight reels. But I would highly recommend going back and watching all of his Bellator fights because they were all entertaining. With the exception of maybe one or two, they were all fantastic performances. So MVP, he's quickly becoming a lot of people's favorite fighter in the UFC. And besides that third round, which was a little bit boring, that was an incredibly exciting fight. So let's move on now to the welterweight bout between Carlos Prelims and Geoff Neal. And this was the fight going into it that I said I was the most certain about. I said that this was a lamb being offered up for slaughter. And that's exactly how it turned out to be. Geoff Neal got in there. He landed a couple good punches, but really it was just Prelims picking him apart, ripping to the body, hitting him with faster kicks, more accurate with his kicks. And, he kind of whittled him down. I called this as a first round knockout, and I was right by 1 second. 1 second left on the clock. He spins and hits him with a spinning back elbow that was like nothing I've ever heard before in my life. It sounded like a baseball bat, like a home run being knocked out of the stadium. That was quite the sound. I've never heard that from a spinning back elbow before, and that was nasty. Geoff Neal was out for a while, and it looked pretty scary there. I'm like, I hope there's no internal bleeding or this guy doesn't die. I don't want to see a death in the octagon, but holy, that was vicious. Maybe the cleanest knockout of the year besides the roofie knockout of Bobby Green, or King Green, my apologies. That fight also fell through. He was supposed to be fighting on this card, King Green. That fight fell through. The Brian Battle fight fell through. Really sucks, but this card really showed out. Mainly because of this performance and the performance that we'll talk about right after it. The performance by Prelims in this was just phenomenal. Like I said, the whole first round was just him landing such clean body punches and beautiful kicks and knees, and he's just such a fun striker to watch. I really, really want to see him fight guys like Marias and MVP and like the top strikers in this division. I just want to see him matched up well. Don't put him against like a Shavkat, because Prelims versus Shavkat, I think we know how that one's going to go. Shavkat's probably going to take him down and ride him, but who knows? Prelims versus Jack Della Maddalena is another great fight. I would love to see that one as well. I just want to see him paired up with all the great strikers in this division because he's truly something special, and I want to see just to what extent he can finish everybody because, his one loss in the UFC, the Ian Gary fight, was very close. He almost finished him at the end of it. He was very, very close to finishing Ian Gary at the very end there. And maybe if they run that fight back, he can knock out Ian Gary. I don't know. I don't know what the upper limits to this guy is. He's a tricky fighter to call because he smokes cigarettes all the time. He's constantly partying. His body is weird. It's very lanky. He's got very long legs. Doesn't look like he has a ton of muscle mass, but he hits like a freaking truck. He's got like Pereira power at welterweight. He has quickly become one of my favorite fighters in the welterweight division and in the entire sport. So awesome performance by Prelims there. The spinning back elbow was beautiful. It was the 9th one, I believe, in the sports history, or in UFC history, I should say. And then we got the 10th spinning back elbow knockout the fight after it. Back-to-back spinning back elbows, which was crazy. But the featherweight fight between Lerone Murphy and Aaron Pico went not exactly how I thought. I thought Pico was going to go in there and get it done in the first round, and it was looking for a while there like that might get done. He was pressuring Murphy, pushing him up against the cage, ripping the body so well. The body shots were beautiful, and it looked like he might be able to get it done, but just out of nowhere almost, Murphy spins and knocks him out clean. Clean, cold knockout. It was perfectly timed. I think it came around 3 minutes in the first round, and it was such a nice knockout too. I really don't know which knockout was nicer, the Prelims one or the Murphy one. The Murphy one seemed a little bit more high IQ. It was against a more quality opponent, and it was just so well timed, whereas the Prelims one kind of came out of nowhere, and it was just so loud. I've never heard a spinning back elbow that loud before, but yeah, tremendous performance by Murphy, man. Like, I'm never going to doubt him again. I don't know why I doubted him before. Maybe it's because I've been watching Pico for years and I know how good of a wrestler this guy is. I'm like, this is my guy. I really want this guy to come in and win a belt. But Yeah, we can't doubt Murphy, man. He was undefeated for a reason. That was a tremendous, tremendous performance, and I would love to see him fight on the same card as Leon Edwards, because I feel like he's like a featherweight version of Edwards. He's a very, very crafty fighter and a very high striking IQ. I'm excited to see what he's going to do against Volkanovski, because that seems like it's going to be the next fight. I really want to see Evloev fight for the title, Mosfar Evloev. I think he's the best fighter at 145, in my opinion. If I have to look at all of them, I think he's the most talented. But we'll see what happens. There's so many great fights to be made at featherweight. We have the Lopez versus Silva fight coming up. I can't wait for that one. That's a fight night, but I might have to make a video on it, breaking it down before it happens or predicting it, because I'm so excited for that one. I might even do a prediction video for the, I think it's UFC Paris, the Imavov versus Kai Berhalio fight, and the Saint Denis versus Rufi. That's also going to be a tremendous fight night card. That could almost be a pay-per-view. So I might break down that fight as well. Do a little prediction video and a breakdown video. We'll see. But yeah, again, tremendous performance by Murphy. I can't wait to see what he does in the welterweight division. If he can beat Volkanovski, we'll see how long he can hold on to that title for. But with an undefeated record, I think he's only 34 years of age. He can go on a pretty good run here and maybe make a crack at the 145-pound GOAT. You know, you only have to defend your belt, I think, 6 times. I forget what the record is at 145. Somebody will correct me down below in the comments, but it's not like 12 defenses or 11 or whatever Demetrius Johnson had, right? It's a little bit more feasible to become the GOAT at that weight class when there's not somebody like a DJ who's defended it like freaking 20 times, it feels like. But anyways, let's move on now to the main event. I know you guys all want to hear about that one. That fight was good if you were a Chimaev fan. I think some of the Chimaev fans enjoyed that one, but I think most people agree that was a pretty boring fight overall. A lot of pot shots, a lot of little love taps to DDP's head. I mean, I don't want to be in that position getting tapped by Chimaev, but not the most exciting fight. Not vicious ground and pound, huge smashing elbows like Khabib used to do to people. And I thought Chimaev was capable of that. Maybe he needs to go and train with Khabib and learn how to posture up better and get those elbows on. But the crucifix position isn't the greatest position to land shots. It depends on your opponent and how strong they are and how much space you can create, but it wasn't really working for Chimaev, and there's a lot of booing throughout this fight. So to break it down, I mean, all of the rounds kind of went the same. Round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, and round 5 were all kind of mirror rounds. They were all exactly the same. Maybe the last 30 seconds of round 5, there was some shifting of positions and DDP grabbed a choke for 2 seconds and then let it go. But really, the whole fight was just Khamzat gets in there, starts the round, they throw like 2 punches, Khamzat shoots, takes him down, because he's going to do that to absolutely everybody in the division, possibly with the exception of Bo Nickel. I'd like to think in my mind that he's a good enough wrestler to maybe stop Chimaev, but I honestly don't know at this point, because that was utter dominance. I didn't think he was going to take DDP down and hold him for that long, for that many rounds. I thought DDP was going to be able to stand up. I was believing him. I was like, this guy is strong. I've seen what he did against other opponents. Like, I think he's strong enough to just stand up, almost like Derek Lewis does when he's on the ground. Like, just stand up. But that wasn't the case. You know, Chimaev was able to hold him down, and DDP said in his post-fight interview that it was like a wet blanket. It wasn't so much that he was strong, but he just knew where you were going to be. He knew every single move you were going to make on the ground, and that's what happens when you wrestle at such a high level, and Chimaev was trained by arguably the greatest freestyle wrestler of all time. It depends on what era you're from. I might say Sadulayev, but a lot of people say it's Saitiev. And he trained Chimaev, and he's arguably the greatest wrestler in freestyle history. So when you have that kind of pedigree, you're probably going to do that to most people, if not everybody in the division. And I would like to have seen him maybe chase a little bit more for a submission, you know, crank his arm, go for the Kimura or the Americana a bit more, but he couldn't get it done, so it became a little bit of a boring fight. A lot of just sitting in crucifix, sitting on his back, little pot shots, nothing really big, a couple big elbows, but not much. And we'll see. I think that was like an anomalous case where Chimaev just had a guy on the ground that was so damn strong. He had to be careful with what he did, because this guy could stand up or reverse position, or he could do something. Like, you got to be careful with DDP. You got to hold him down. And I feel like he was just so invested in the holding him down part, he never really got an opportunity to open up with the strikes or to really chase a submission. And that's what made the fight so damn boring. I don't think that's going to be the case with anybody else in the division, though. I think maybe with the exception of Reiner de Ridder, maybe he's as strong as DDP. I don't think anybody else in this division's as strong as DDP and is going to put up as much resistance for as long as DDP did. So I think for most people, Khazmat's going to wilt them. And now that he has his cardio improved, he's training with I'm forgetting the name, the bald guy, the amazing cardio coach. He's fantastic. He's whipping Khazmat into shape now in that famous garage. So I think he's going to do this to absolutely everybody, and I think he's going to wilt people a lot earlier, and he's probably going to find stoppages in most of his title defenses. I don't think it's going to be like every single title defense is just going to be now Khamzat laying on a guy for 25 minutes. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I know that put a bit of a sour taste in some people's mouth. Like, man, we were expecting this super violent, I kill everybody guy to come in and be like the next Pereira at 185, but that was kind of a boring performance. So we'll see what happens in the future. I don't blame him. He fought a great fight. It was the most dominated fight I think I've ever seen in UFC history. I mean, he landed the highest strike differential ever. It was like over 400 strike differential. I think he had the highest strike count too in a UFC title fight, which, I mean, the strikes, like I said, were kind of just baby strikes, but still a very impressive performance. And I can't wait to see what he does in the future, because I've been waiting since 2020 for this guy to be champion. He came into the UFC and he melted guys. Didn't even take a punch. Not one punch. He just came into the UFC, the top organization in the world, with all of these professionals who do this for a living. I don't care if you want to call them tomato cans. These were professional fighters that worked their way into the UFC, and Khazmat basically just walked into the UFC and treated them like children. Took them down, didn't take a single punch, and strangled them. And he did it to like 3 guys in 3 months, which was 2 guys in 2 weeks, I think, too. It's so impressive to see how he came into the sport. And I'm like, throw this guy in there with Adesanya tomorrow, and I promise you he wins the belt. But no, he has to win other fights, right? He has to beat Gilbert Burns. He has to beat Kamaru Usman. He has to beat Robert Whittaker. He needs to have these fights first. So it took a long time. It was like year after year. I'm just like, come on, man, like, fight more. And he pulled out of fights because of COVID and getting sick and all this BS that was all in the way, prolonging this journey where this guy should have been champion at 27 years old. Now he's 31 and becoming champion, and that's still very young. He can still go on a tremendous run here. He could probably beat Anderson Silva's title defense record if he stays active enough and fights 2 to 3 times a year. I think he has enough in him to stay dominant for the next 5-6 years. We could see Chimaev champion for that long. It is possible. He has the skills to do that. Will he be entertaining enough for the fans? We'll see. I think this was his only boring fight in his career. He's finished most of his fights. I think 3 fights he hasn't finished, that's it. And they were all relatively entertaining besides this one, right? The Burns fight was very entertaining. The Kamaru Usman fight was very entertaining. So I think this was a fluke fight. I think just because DDP was so damn strong, so damn resilient, he put up such a force that, Chimaev had to spend the whole time just holding him down and holding him in place because he was so strong. So I think we're going to see better fights from him in the future. But you guys let me know down below in the comments. What did you guys think of that performance? What do you want to see next from Chimaev? Who do you want to see him face next? Do you want to see him face the winner of Imanov versus Barhario? Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't speak Portuguese. But do you want to see him fight the winner of that, or do you want to see him fight de Ridder? Because in my opinion, as somebody who's been following de Ridder for a long time, de Ridder's the guy. I think if there's one guy on the ground that might be able to submit Chimaev, I would put my money on de Ridder. I prefer him over Fluffy Hernandez. I don't think he's as strong as de Ridder. So we'll see. You guys let me know down below in the comments. Play matchmaker and let me know who you guys want to see face Chimaev next. Do you guys want to see Murphy fight for the 145-pound title, or do you guys think somebody else deserves it? Maybe Iluev, maybe Yair. There's a lot of guys at 145 who can make a very strong case right now. But let me know down below what you guys think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends to help boost this channel and the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it means the absolute world to me. I hope you guys enjoyed those fights, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.